Welcome to Lessons After the Sessions.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Trev.
How is you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm pretty good. We've had some technical difficulties.
I am so glad that we have such an amazing support person of Lindsay, who is more than that helped us out. So,
I know.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. So, okay. I've been thinking about this podcast for a while, and I think we should talk about forgiveness.
That's such a heavy subject, but so relevant.
It is. And as I was thinking about forgiveness and thinking about forgiving others, it hit me that in order to probably get to a place where you can forgive others, it has to start with forgiving yourself before we can adequately forgive someone else.
I agree. I think that kind of also wraps into the point that forgiving other people, I think there's this misconception. Forgiveness can look so many different ways. And I think that's why it becomes so confusing. But I think ultimately what's been maybe kind of put out there by society or culturally, I don't know, but forgiveness as a whole, traditionally, I feel like it's always been viewed as you're letting someone off for the behavior that they've done to cause harm.
Right.
So if I forgive you, that means that you get a free pass. And I think that the way that forgiveness really should look is exactly the part that you were talking about, which is it's for us. It's a personal thing. It's individually because we really can't control anyone else's situation. So to say we forgive someone isn't actually giving them a free pass because they have to hold that. They have to deal with what they did, and that's their path to walk. Forgiveness is for us so that we can move forward and release that onto the other person.
Absolutely. I often tell people forgiveness is for you, not the other person. It doesn't change accountability on the other person's part.
Right.
It just releases you. And so many of us are carrying around shame that can turn into toxic shame. And that impacts our life so greatly. And so we need to be able to forgive ourselves for things. And that starts that feeling of release and helps you, I think, be able to see that forgiving someone else is just another process of you letting go. Because oftentimes, what you're forgiving yourself from, bad choices, unhealthy decisions, and you get so fixated, I think, on the person. Maybe you made an unhealthy decision in choosing a romantic partner. And you get so fixated on what they did to you and, you know, they wronged me and how can I ever forgive them? But then pretty soon you start noticing the story is more in your head about how stupid am I? How unlovable am I that this person cheated on me or this person walked away from me? And you've got to start with forgiving yourself for being human, for believing in something or someone, and forgive yourself because then that allows you to see, okay, I can forgive this person because in that situation, I've now forgiven the piece that I'm accountable for.
I think that's a really relevant point. I know that there's not a single human on this earth that at some point in time hasn't experienced shame and guilt for a decision or a choice that they have made. Because again, like you just mentioned, we're all human. But I think that the piece that becomes toxic is when there's two parts to it, where you talk about forgiveness. The two pieces of forgiveness are the part where you forgive yourself, meaning that you understand why you made the choice that you did. It doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it wrong, but you know your why and you give yourself empathy, compassion, grace. And so when you do that, then you're also able to extend that same piece to the other person because you know where your reasons came from. And so if you're able to do that for yourself, it only makes sense to be able to do that and release that for someone else to do that for themselves. It's not our place to hold that over someone else's head. It's their job, just as it's our job to be able to deal with our own shit.
Yes. Yes. And I think often we want to hold on to not only our shame, but shame someone else and almost have this piece in our mind of we need them to be accountable. I have to make them be accountable. No, it's not our job. It's not our job. Our job is to look within. And like you said, you made such a great point. Figuring out the why, that is all part of that forgiveness journey. Because when you're able to figure out the why and start looking at it, you then give more room for grace for yourself and someone else. But also, you begin to heal and learn, wow, this is what I can avoid so I don't make an unhealthy choice like this in the future.
I agree 100%. Now, let me challenge you a little bit. Let's just put out a scenario that may be challenging, right? And how do you find forgiveness for another person? Say,
I accept the challenge.
wonderful. So, say that, let's just kind of hypothesize. I have been sexually assaulted.
Okay.
Okay. So, I was sexually assaulted when I was young, and it was by someone I trusted. And that person, what they did to me, changed the trajectory of my life in a lot of ways. I held shame and guilt on myself for having been just even in that position, all those things that we understand that it's my fault. I was probably dismissed. Maybe if I did talk about it, I was dismissed by family members or friends, saying that it's my fault that I put myself in that position. I maybe the person, my assaulter, was dismissive of me, that it didn't happen, gaslighting, all of these other things. But here I am now, later as an adult, and I still carry this grudge, and I withhold forgiveness from this person who has damaged me in so many ways, and I cannot find any way to be able to let go of that. What would be your take on that? What would be your advice as to how I would work through that?
Sure. So that's a good challenge because that scenario has some different implications as far as looking inward, because in that example there is no accountability on you as a victim of sexual assault. There is
Exactly.
no accountability.
Yep.
And yet I haven't met a person who doesn't feel accountable and shame and guilt,
Exactly.
like you mentioned. So, in that scenario, I think it takes a lot of concrete things,
Mhm.
concrete tools to begin to release and have forgiveness. In that way, excuse me, in that example, it's going to take you digging deep and recognizing that the forgiveness is to release their power over you, viewing that situation as power and saying, I take back my power by forgiveness. And here we go back to what you said initially. It doesn't mean that we're saying, I excuse what you did. You didn't do anything wrong. I now want to be your friend and talk to you. Absolutely not. It means that I'm taking my power back and saying what you did was atrocious and it damaged my life in these ways. And yet I've learned in these ways. And some of the concrete tools to get there, letter writing is one of the most powerful tools to release toxicity out of you, that you have just free ground to just write. And writing letters to your abuser that you'll never send, and saying all of these things. Here's all the ways you hurt me. Here's what everything you want to say. And then maybe you have a ritual of ripping it up, burning it up, whatever. And it may take you 10 different letters. But that's one tool. The other tool that can be really helpful is you think about how what would you want to say to a child? So the age you were when you were abused, to help them get some of their power back. And then you, again, you can write a letter, you can talk out loud, journal. You start speaking to sort of that inner child in that manner to try to help them, because this is one of the hardest things to forgive.
Yep.
But if you realize the forgiveness is for you,
Right.
that it isn't for them, and it's never forgiving the act, it is saying, I release your power over me.
Right. Well, and I think that's a really good, and that's why I kind of brought that up, because it's, you talk about forgiveness in sort of a loose way, but really when it comes down to the times when it's the most challenging are times like that. When someone has, and we see that all the time, someone has been just severely hurt in whatever way, and it was no fault of theirs. They were a victim. And I think that the other thing that I see commonly is a reluctance to forgive, because the fear is that if I forgive, then I'm safe. So the holding on to that grudge, withholding forgiveness keeps me safe. That keeps me vigilant. And that's the headspace that I have known for a really long time. So who am I, and how do I move forward if I don't have that with me?
It also, I think, if you think about it in terms like that, I think it's this it's actually the fear of not being in power and control.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a fallacy that as I hold on to that bitterness and that anger, that somehow that's keeping me powerful and that keeps me in control.
Yeah.
And it's recognizing that it's the opposite. It's the opposite.
It's absolutely the opposite. And I think that's where forgiveness kind of comes in. And it's almost like we should create some sort of new word instead of forgiveness. Like we need to coin something that replaces forgiveness. So maybe instead of forgiveness, we talk about
Releasing.
That's exactly what I was just getting ready to say.
Great minds think alike.
So I think forgiveness has it's a heavy word, and people reject it.
They do, because it has that implication
Exactly.
of giving in.
Yes. And you're not, because think about the word itself says that, forgiveness. So you're giving, you're forgiving, you're letting go, you're letting someone off the hook, you're giving it. And I think that in and of itself is really it's a weird abstract theory that is not really easy to achieve, and so people get, I think, almost offended by the thought or the suggestion of forgiveness because of the fallacy that surrounds it.
Yes.
And so just maybe we should just coin it. It's not forgiveness anymore. It's releasing. Releasing-ness. Can we create a new word?
I love it.
Release-ness?
I do create new words occasionally.
Yes.
So I love that one.
Okay.
It's releasing. And I think that is absolutely our lesson after this session, is not using the word forgiveness, using the word release, releasing, because that is what it is. I'm letting go. And in releasing out, I gain power.
Yeah.
I gain power because I am not in control of that person's behaviors. Therefore, I wasn't in control in how they harmed me, whether it was physically, emotionally, whatever it was. I'm not in control of that, but boy, am I in control of me. And me being angry and bitter at you is only hurting me.
Yeah. Well, and it comes into, I'm thinking of all these different scenarios that have run through my mind since we've been talking about the different ways in which releasing, our new coined word, or forgiveness have come up for not only myself, but for people, my loved ones, and all of these other things. And I think, people that we see, and I think that it is such a very broad concept. Like if I think, okay, so we have this scenario that I challenged you with someone who's been sexually assaulted. But I think, what about, if you're a parent and your child is injured or hurt and by someone else? And how do you release that, right? because then again, I think there's a piece and component there of the shame and the guilt that I failed to protect my child.
Right.
Even if 9 times out of 10, there was nothing, actually, probably 10 times out of 10, there really wasn't much you could have done to change or prevent what had happened. However, you just inherently kind of take that on. So then that forgiveness comes back to the point that you made in the beginning, which is the forgiveness of yourself. But then there's romantic relationships where that's a big one too. There's co-parenting, which is huge, with being able to co-parent with someone that you once really cared a great deal about, and then that fell apart. How do you release that so that you can co-parent and see that person every day when that triggers right there in front of you?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely.
It runs deep. It runs so thick and so wide. I mean, to be fair, I don't know. Like, I mean, you could really go down a rabbit hole with this one.
You can. And as you started that hole, it got me thinking that releasing every single day should and maybe needed for each of us to release from that day, even.
Yeah.
Because so many things pop up.
Mhm.
And I think that also leads to what I think our next podcast is going to be, expectations.
Yes.
So we'll get into that in our next podcast, but so much need for a release can be based on our expectations.
Yeah.
Of course, you brought up a very big example, right? Like being sexually assaulted. But thank goodness that's not occurring to every single person every day.
Absolutely.
But all sorts of things are that require a release.
Yeah.
Whether it be to someone else, but so often to ourselves. I see so many people right now who are walking around with so much shame, hating themselves, beating themselves up for things. And so I come back to that releasing of self.
And I do feel that that mindset is infectious. So, when you begin to release the shame and guilt that you hold on yourself, the lightness that you then, the air that you carry becomes lighter, which then is infectious to the people around you.
Yes, and it's like what I said earlier. That's it is so much easier to bridge release forgiveness, quote unquote, to someone else when it has started within. It's just what you're saying. There's a lightness, there's an air of positivity and gratitude and love.
Absolutely.
And it then can extend to others.
Absolutely. And I think of, this, I mean, again, my head is spinning with all the different ways that this goes in. And I think that another one that I kind of recognize that goes in is, and something that I think we'll do in a future podcast as well, is just estrangement from family, where you have a lot of different family members that are estranged in different capacities. And this, the forgiveness and the lack thereof, and that the bitterness that kind of couples in with all of that, I mean, it's so far reaching. It's so far reaching. And I think that as a whole, really what it comes down to 100% is that release. And that the challenge is when we sit and look at our lives and we think, how many things are we holding on to unnecessarily, whether it's emotions, whether it's memories, whether it's things that we refuse to let go of because they keep us safe. We don't even recognize it's subconscious. We don't even know that we do these things, but we all have kind of a way that we live and be because of times, when you're hurt. Absolutely, you will not forget that. And it leaves
an imprint.
It does. And then you take that with you and you carry it forward. And to release that, let go of it in whatever capacity, whether it's the other person, whether it's you, but I think it usually starts with you first. I agree. That a lot of times becomes very difficult because you feel very raw and vulnerable underneath all that. But that, I think, is actually the absolute most beautiful way to be.
Oh, it's tremendous, and it feels amazing.
It does.
You can literally feel it vibrate within you, and you can feel when it's not.
Yeah.
And when okay, I got to do some work here. And that work is so important because, like you said, it is an amazing feeling and it's an amazing gift to give to others, strangers, people you love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. But I think it also is you're right about the daily piece because it is a daily choice. And really, I don't know how many times I run across people who say I cannot do that. And I feel like, okay, well that's 100% human rights. That's your choice to do that. But I think when you make a choice, you really have to think about the implications of that choice.
I'm so glad you said choice, and I know we're getting close on time, but going back to those concrete tools, making a conscious choice is the first one, because in doing that and saying and choosing to release, I am choosing to feel love and gratitude, not for that person, maybe not for that situation, but in general, that's your first step.
Yeah.
Making that choice.
Wow. Very, very powerful subject. We could go on and on and on. We may have to do a forgiveness part 2 down the road.
Yes, because it's a deep topic.
It
and
is.
It's one that I think people don't think enough about. The need for that daily releasing of anger, bitterness, wrongs, again, valid feelings. Hanging on to all that
Absolutely.
is no good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will, we all know someone who's bitter. We all know someone who's negative and their energy is just stifling. And I think, that is what I think of someone who holds grudges, someone who withholds close, forgiveness or releasing is that kind of thing. And we can still have negative feelings about things. We can still have times where we're really hurt and it takes us a while to get to that place. That's not at all what the subject is at all. It's the journey of life and how that fits into all of us and what choices we make and how we process that and release it.
We have created a new word, release-ism.
We got to come up with that. Release-ness?
Release-ness.
Yeah, we got to coin a term. Stay tuned for that.
All right.
We'll have our new terms. We maybe have to just post a new dictionary, a Trev and Jen dictionary.
I love that.
That's a great idea.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
We'll be back.
Bye.